The first time Audrey realized Ramsey Salmon's wife was cheating on him, she was standing in his kitchen holding a tray of untouched chocolate soufflés. She had made 6 of them. 6 delicate soufflés, baked to perfection because Ramsey had once mentioned, only once, that his mother used to make them whenever he had a difficult day. Audrey had remembered. Vivienne hadn't. In fact, Vivienne had been gone for 3 days. And that was only the beginning. Hello, my lovely soul family. Welcome back to the channel. Before we delve into today's story, if you love emotional billionaire romances with unforgettable endings that make you smile, then take a second now, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you're listening from. You never know which story might find you on a day when you need it most. Now, let's begin. Audrey had never imagined herself working inside a billionaire's mansion. She had grown up in a small apartment above her mother's bakery, where the kitchen was so narrow that 2 people couldn't stand in it without bumping shoulders. Cooking had been Audrey's escape. She could take flour, butter, herbs, vegetables, and a handful of spices and turn them into something that made people pause after the first bite. That talent eventually took her to culinary school. Years later, it brought her to the enormous Salmon estate. The first morning she arrived, she stood at the entrance with one suitcase in her hand and stared at the house. It wasn't a house. It was a world. Tall windows overlooked acres of green lawn. A stone pathway curved around a fountain. Inside, everything was polished marble, dark wood, and expensive furniture that looked as though nobody was allowed to sit on it. Audrey had expected the mansion to feel impressive. She hadn't expected it to feel lonely. Then she met Ramsey Salmon. He walked into the kitchen wearing a charcoal suit, his tie loosened slightly around his neck. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark brown hair that never seemed completely willing to stay in place. His face was handsome without looking carefully arranged, and his eyes were the kind of deep brown that made people look twice. He stopped when he saw her. "You're the new chef." Audrey placed her suitcase beside the counter. "Private chef." His eyebrow lifted. "There's a difference?" "Yes," she answered calmly. "And what is it?" "A private chef gets to tell the person paying her that he's eating badly." For the first time, Ramsey looked genuinely amused. "You've been here 30 seconds. And you've already skipped breakfast." His smile disappeared. Audrey pointed toward the kitchen island. "I made you eggs." "I don't eat eggs." "You will today." Ramsey stared at her. Audrey stared back. Finally, he walked over, sat down, and took a bite. She waited. He took another. Then another. "You're very persistent," he said. "You're very difficult." "I own this house. I cook in it." His mouth twitched. Audrey smiled. That was how it started. Not with fireworks. Not with love at first sight. Just eggs. Over the next few weeks, Audrey learned Ramsey's habits. He hated overly sweet coffee. He liked his steak medium. He worked through lunch whenever he was worried about something. And whenever he had a bad day, he became strangely quiet. Audrey didn't ask questions. She simply cooked. Sometimes she left a warm bowl of soup outside his study. Sometimes she put a sandwich beside his laptop with a note that read, "You can't buy another stomach. Eat." Ramsey never mentioned the notes. But he never threw them away either. One evening, Audrey was chopping basil when Ramsey entered the kitchen. "You're still here." She looked over her shoulder. "I'm your private chef." "Where exactly do you think I'm going?" "I don't know. Most people disappear when I enter a room. Maybe they're scared of you." "Are you?" Audrey returned to chopping. "No." Ramsey leaned against the counter. "Why not?" "Because you're not scary. I am to most people. Most people haven't seen you trying to open a jar of pickles." Ramsey frowned. "That jar was defective." Audrey laughed. A real laugh. It filled the quiet kitchen. Ramsey looked at her for a moment longer than necessary. Then he smiled. And Audrey suddenly became very interested in the basil. But there was one person who never seemed to appreciate the warmth Audrey brought into the house. Vivienne Salmon. Ramsey's wife was beautiful. Elegant. Always perfectly dressed. She could walk into a room wearing a simple black dress and make everyone else feel underdressed. But Audrey noticed something strange. Vivienne rarely ate. She would sit at the dining table while Audrey served dinner, take 2 bites, then excuse herself. And she almost never looked at Ramsey. At first, Audrey assumed it was simply the distance that sometimes grew between married couples. Then the late night started. Vivienne began leaving the house without explanation. Weekend trips appeared on the calendar. Phone calls were taken behind closed doors. And Ramsey seemed to notice none of it. Or perhaps he simply chose not to. One Thursday evening, Audrey prepared dinner for the 2 of them. Ramsey came home at 8. Vivienne never arrived. At 9, he called her. No answer. At 10, he called again. Still nothing. Audrey was cleaning the kitchen when Ramsey appeared in the doorway. She said she'd be home tonight, he said quietly. Audrey stopped wiping the counter. Maybe something came up. She always tells me when something comes up. There was something in his voice that made Audrey look at him. Not anger. Hurt. He sat at the kitchen island and rubbed his forehead. Audrey quietly placed a plate in front of him. I made something. I don't feel like eating. I didn't ask. He looked at her. She pushed the fork toward him. Just 3 bites. Ramsey sighed. You're impossible. 3 bites, she said again. He took the fork. The corner of Audrey's mouth lifted. For a few minutes, neither spoke. Then Ramsey said softly, You know, you're the only person in this house who doesn't treat me like I'm made of money. Audrey's smile faded. You're not. Ramsey looked at her. You're just Ramsey, she added. Something shifted between them. Neither of them spoke about it. But neither forgot it. 3 days later, Audrey was driving home from the market when she saw a familiar car. Vivienne's car. It was parked outside an upscale hotel across town. Audrey almost kept driving. Then she saw Vivienne step out. She wasn't alone. A man followed her. He was younger than Ramsey, dressed casually, and he placed a hand around Vivienne's waist. Vivienne smiled. Not the polite smile Audrey had seen at charity dinners. A real smile. The kind Ramsey had been waiting for all week. Audrey's hands tightened around the steering wheel. She watched Vivienne lean toward the man. Then Vivienne kissed him. Audrey looked away. Her heart pounded. She didn't want to know. She didn't want to be involved. But when she drove back to the mansion that evening, Ramsey was standing in the kitchen waiting for her. His face looked tired. Did you see Vivienne today? He asked. Audrey froze. Ramsey stepped closer. She told me she was visiting her sister. Audrey couldn't answer. His eyes searched her face. Audrey. She lowered her gaze. And Ramsey's expression changed. He knew. Maybe not the truth. But he knew she was carrying something. What happened? Audrey swallowed. I think you should sit down. Ramsey didn't move. Why? She looked into his eyes. And for the first time since she had entered his home, Audrey wished she could tell him anything except the truth. Because once she said it, nothing between them would ever be the same. Ramsey. Her voice trembled. Your wife is not where she told you she was. Ramsey didn't speak. For several seconds, the kitchen was completely silent. The refrigerator hummed behind them. Rain tapped against the tall windows. Audrey could hear her own heartbeat. Then Ramsey asked quietly, Where is she? Audrey looked down. I saw her at the Belmont Hotel this afternoon. His jaw tightened. With who? Audrey hesitated. That isn't the part you want to hear. Try me. Audrey sighed briefly. She was with another man. Ramsey stared at her. No way. The word came out almost like a whisper. Audrey didn't move. She kissed him. Ramsey's face went completely still. He looked away, as though the kitchen had suddenly become too small. How long? I don't know. How long have you known? I only found out today. He turned back toward her. And you saw them? Yes. Are you sure it was her? Audrey's eyes filled with frustration. Ramsey, I know what your wife looks like. He closed his eyes. For a moment, Audrey thought he might break something. Instead, he reached for the back of a chair and held it tightly. Did she see you? No. Good. Audrey frowned. Good. I don't want her knowing yet, Ramsey says. Why? Because I want to hear her lie to my face. Ramsey didn't sleep that night. Audrey knew because at 3 a.m, she found him sitting alone at the kitchen island. His suit jacket was gone. His sleeves were rolled to his elbows. A glass of water sat untouched in front of him. Audrey stopped in the doorway. You should be in bed. So should you. I work here. You're not working at 3 in the morning. Neither are you. He gave a humorless smile. Apparently, my wife is. Audrey's expression softened. She walked to the stove and turned it on. What are you doing? Making soup. I don't want soup. You didn't want breakfast either. Audrey. 3 bites. Despite everything, Ramsey almost smiled. You're still doing that? Yes. She placed a bowl in front of him. He stared at it. Then he picked up the spoon. After a few bites, he whispered, I thought we were happy. Audrey leaned against the counter. She didn't tell him that sometimes people could sit beside you for years and still keep an entire life hidden. She simply said, I'm sorry. Ramsey looked at her. You're the first person who's ever said that to me without wanting something afterward. Audrey's chest tightened. She didn't answer. Ramsey finished the soup. Then he looked at her. Thank you. It was the first time he'd ever said it like that. Not casually. Not because she had done her job. He meant it. The next evening, Vivienne came home. She walked into the mansion carrying shopping bags as though nothing had happened. Ramsey was waiting in the living room. Audrey was in the kitchen. She could hear every word. Darling, Vivienne said brightly. You're home early. I've been home. Vivienne paused. I thought you had dinner with the board. I cancelled. A silence followed. Then Vivienne placed her bags down. Is something wrong? Ramsey's didn't answer. Instead, he threw a question of his own. Where were you yesterday? With my sister. No, you weren't. Silence. Audrey stopped stirring the sauce. Vivienne's voice changed. What are you talking about? The Belmont Hotel. Another silence. Then came the sound of a glass being placed on the table. Ramsey. Who is he? Audrey closed her eyes. Vivienne finally said, It isn't what you think. Ramsey laughed once. It wasn't a happy sound. That's what people say when it is exactly what you think. Vivienne began crying. But Ramsey didn't move toward her. His name, he demanded. She whispered it. Morris. Audrey heard the name. Morris. Ramsey asked. How long? Vivienne didn't answer. How long, Vivienne? Almost a year. The kitchen suddenly felt cold. Audrey slowly lowered the spoon. Almost a year. Ramsey said nothing. Vivienne tried to explain. She talked about feeling neglected. About Ramsey always working. About loneliness. About how Morris made her feel seen. Ramsey listened. He didn't interrupt. When she finished, he said, You could have left. Vivienne wiped her tears. I didn't want to lose everything. And that sentence seemed to hurt him more than the affair itself. Ramsey nodded slowly. Now I understand. He walked toward the door. Vivienne called after him. Where are you going? He stopped. Somewhere I don't have to pretend this marriage still exists. Then he left. The following weeks were difficult. Vivienne moved out. The divorce process began quietly. Ramsey buried himself in work. He came home later. He ate less. And Audrey became worried. One evening, she found him asleep at the dining table. His laptop was still open. A cold cup of coffee sat beside him. She quietly closed the laptop. Then she placed a blanket over his shoulders. Ramsey stirred. Audrey, go back to sleep. I have a meeting. Not tomorrow. He opened his eyes. You're giving me orders again. Yes. He smiled faintly. You're getting brave. I've always been brave. I know. Something about the way he said it made her stop. Ramsey looked at her. You stayed. Audrey swallowed. You needed someone. I've needed someone for a long time. Her heart skipped. But she stepped back. Get some sleep, she said, then walked away. Ramsey watched her disappear into the kitchen. For the first time since Vivienne had left, he didn't feel completely alone. Their friendship grew quietly. Audrey began discovering the man beneath the billionaire. Ramsey discovered that Audrey hated thunderstorms. So whenever rain shook the mansion at night, he would leave a small lamp glowing in the kitchen because he knew she sometimes came downstairs to make tea. Audrey discovered he couldn't cook anything except scrambled eggs. Ramsey discovered she sang quietly while preparing breakfast. One Saturday morning, he walked into the kitchen while she was singing. She immediately stopped. You weren't supposed to hear that. I heard nothing. You were standing 3 feet away. I have selective hearing, so. Audrey laughed. Ramsey smiled. Then he reached for a wooden spoon. What are you making? Pancakes. I can help. She looked suspicious. With what? I can flip them. You can't cook. I can flip. She handed him one. Fine. Ramsey attempted to flip the pancake. It landed on the floor. Audrey stared at it. Ramsey stared at it. Then they both burst out laughing. It was the first time Audrey had seen him laugh without holding anything back. She laughed until she had tears in her eyes. Ramsey leaned against the counter. You're laughing at me. Yes, she said boldly. You're fired. You can't fire me. Why? You'd starve. He burst into laughter. That's true, actually. For a few seconds, they simply looked at each other. The laughter faded. Something warmer remained. Ramsey reached toward her cheek. A small streak of flour was there. He gently wiped it away. Audrey stopped breathing. His hand remained near her face for one quiet second. Then he pulled away. Flour. I know. Neither of them mentioned the moment afterward. But both remembered it. A month later, Ramsey asked Audrey to join him for dinner. She looked at him suspiciously. I cook dinner for you every night. Not tonight. Then what am I eating? Whatever you want. Where? A restaurant. Audrey blinked. You're taking your chef to a restaurant? Yes. Why? Because you deserve to sit at a table where someone else does the cooking. She smiled. That's actually sweet. Ramsey looked almost embarrassed. Don't tell anyone. The dinner was simple. No photographers. No business partners. No expensive gala. Just the two of them at a quiet restaurant across town. They talked for hours. Audrey told him about her mother's bakery. Ramsey told her about his childhood. He admitted he had learned very young that money could solve problems but couldn't make people stay. Audrey listened. Then she said, You don't have to earn someone's love by being useful. Ramsey looked at her. I think I forgot that. When they returned to the mansion, they stood outside Audrey's door. Neither wanted to say goodnight. Ramsey finally whispered, I had a good time. So did I. He took one step closer. Audrey. She looked up. He stopped himself. Good night. Good night, Ramsey. He walked away. Audrey closed her door and leaned against it. Her heart was racing, but she smiled. The next morning, Ramsey found Audrey in the kitchen. I need to ask you something. She turned. What? Do you think I'm falling for you? Audrey froze. The room went silent. She slowly put down the knife in her hand. Ramsey. I know what this looks like. No, you don't. He stepped closer. I think about you when I'm at work. I look for you when I come home. I remember things you've said. Stop, she cut in. He did. Audrey's eyes were glossy. You're still healing. I know. You're lonely. I know. And I'm here. Yes. She shook her head. That's exactly the problem. Ramsey stared at her. Audrey took a breath. I won't be the woman you love because your marriage failed. That isn't what this is, he confessed. How do you know? Because I've never felt this way before. She looked away. Maybe you need time to know the difference between loving me and needing me. Ramsey didn't argue. That hurt more. He simply nodded. Then I'll give you time. Audrey looked at him. And what if I decide I don't want this? His eyes softened. Then I'll respect that too. He walked away. Audrey stood alone in the kitchen. And for the first time, she realized the hardest part wasn't falling in love with Ramsey Salmon. It was wondering whether she could trust the love he was offering. Because she had spent her entire life believing that love was supposed to feel safe. And Ramsey had just given her a reason to believe it could. But belief wasn't enough. Not yet. For the next 2 weeks, Ramsey kept his promise. He didn't pressure Audrey. He didn't flirt with her. He didn't suddenly appear in the kitchen every morning pretending he needed something. He gave her space. And somehow, that made Audrey think about him even more. She noticed the little things. The way he always thanked her now. The way he stopped working during dinner. The way he sometimes sat at the kitchen island while she cooked, not speaking, simply enjoying the quiet. He had changed. But Audrey still wasn't ready to trust the change. One Friday evening, she was preparing dinner when Ramsey walked into the kitchen. "I have something for you." Audrey glanced at him. "If it's another cookbook, I already have too many." He smiled. "It's not." He placed a small box on the counter. Audrey opened it. Inside was a beautiful silver bracelet with a tiny golden spoon attached to it. She stared at it. "Ramsey, I saw it and thought of you." She touched the bracelet carefully. "You didn't have to buy me this." "I know." She looked up. "Why a spoon?" "Because you're always carrying one." Audrey laughed. "You're ridiculous. I've been called worse." She put the bracelet around her wrist. Ramsey watched her. "It looks beautiful on you." Her smile softened. "Thank you." Neither of them spoke for a moment. Then Audrey noticed something. There was no pressure in his eyes. No expectation. Just affection. And that scared her more than anything. Because maybe this wasn't a rebound. Maybe she really was becoming important to him. A few days later, Audrey received a phone call from her mother. The bakery had been struggling. A major supplier had suddenly increased their prices, and they were considering closing one of the storefronts. Audrey tried to hide her worry. Ramsey noticed anyway. "You're quiet." "I'm fine." "You've said that 3 times today." She sighed. "My mother's bakery is having problems." "How bad?" "It's fine. We'll manage." "That's not what I asked." Audrey hesitated. Then finally, she told him. Ramsey listened without interrupting. The next morning, Audrey's mother called. The supplier had agreed to keep the old prices. Audrey was stunned. She immediately knew. She walked into Ramsey's study. "Did you call someone?" Ramsey looked up from his laptop. "No." "Ramsey." He sighed. "I made one phone call." "You can't do that," Audrey said immediately. "I didn't buy the bakery. But you interfered." "I just helped." "I didn't ask you to." He stood. "I know." "Then why?" Ramsey's voice softened. "Because you were worried." Audrey looked at him. "You can't fix everything with money." "I know." "Then don't try." He nodded. "I'll try harder." She stared at him. "You really don't understand, do you?" "What?" "You don't have to save me." Ramsey stepped closer. "I know." "Then what are you doing?" "I'm trying to stand beside you." Audrey's anger disappeared. That answer was different. He wasn't trying to control her life. He was trying to be there. She looked down. "Thank you." Ramsey smiled. "You're welcome." That evening, they cooked dinner together. Audrey taught Ramsey how to make pasta. He was terrible at it. "You're putting too much flour." "I followed your instructions," he said flatly. "You're supposed to follow them correctly." "I am." "No, you're not." He looked at her. "You enjoy criticizing me." "Very much." She laughed. Ramsey reached for a handful of flour and gently dusted it across her nose. Audrey froze. "Did you just do that?" "Yes." She picked up some flour. Ramsey's eyes widened. "Don't you dare." She threw it and it landed on his shirt. He stared at himself. Then at her. "You've made a serious mistake." Audrey ran. Ramsey followed. For the next few minutes, the Billionaire mansion echoed with laughter. When they finally stopped, Audrey was breathless. Ramsey stood in front of her, smiling. Their faces were inches apart. The laughter faded. He slowly reached for her hand. Audrey didn't pull away. His thumb brushed over her fingers. "I missed this," he whispered. "What?" "Feeling happy." Audrey's eyes softened. "You deserve to." "So do you." He leaned closer. Audrey closed her eyes. But Ramsey stopped before their lips touched. He rested his forehead gently against hers. "I'm not going to rush you." Audrey opened her eyes. "Thank you." He smiled. "Besides, you still have flour on your face." She laughed. "So do you." 3 weeks passed. The divorce was finalized. Vivienne left the city. Ramsey didn't celebrate. He simply came home one evening, placed the papers on his desk, and sat quietly. Audrey found him there. "It's over," he said. She sat beside him. "How do you feel?" He thought for a moment. "Free." Then he looked at her. "And afraid." "Why?" "Because now I have nothing standing between me and the possibility of losing you." Audrey's heart tightened. "You could lose me." "I know." "You're not afraid?" "I am." He reached for her hand. But I'm more afraid of pretending I don't love you because I'm scared. Audrey looked down at their hands, then back at him. Say it again. Ramsey smiled. I love you. Her eyes filled with tears. Not because Vivienne hurt you? No. Not because I'm here? I love that you're here. He squeezed her hand. But I love you even when you're not. Audrey's tears finally fell. Ramsey gently wiped one away. You make my house feel like home, he whispered. She smiled through her tears. And you make me forget that you're a billionaire. Good. Don't get too excited. He laughed. Audrey leaned toward him. This time, she closed the distance herself. Their kiss was gentle. Slow. Nothing rushed. When they pulled apart, Ramsey smiled. I've been waiting a long time for that. Audrey touched his cheek. You waited. I promised I would. She smiled. That matters. He smiled back. 6 months later, the Salmon mansion looked completely different. There were herbs growing in the kitchen garden, flowers on the dining table, music playing during breakfast. And Ramsey had finally learned how to make scrambled eggs. Almost. Audrey walked into the kitchen one morning and found him standing over the stove. She stared. What are you doing? Breakfast. You're cooking. I can cook. She looked into the pan. That's debatable. Ramsey laughed. Audrey walked behind him and wrapped her arms around his waist. He smiled. You're distracting the chef. You're not the chef. I'm practicing to become one. She rested her chin against his shoulder. Then practice harder. Ramsey turned his head. You're becoming bossy. You like it? I do. She grinned. He kissed her forehead. Then he handed her a plate. Audrey took one bite. She paused dramatically. Well, Ramsey waited, curiosity getting the best of him. It's edible. He looked offended. That's all. She smiled. It's actually good. He grinned. Finally. Audrey laughed. Then her eyes fell on the silver bracelet around her wrist. The tiny golden spoon caught the morning sunlight. She touched it. Ramsey noticed. You still wear it. Every day. Why? She looked at him. Because you gave it to me when you weren't asking me for anything. His expression softened. That was the first time I realized I loved you. Audrey smiled. And you were just my employer. And you were just my private chef. She shook her head. No. Ramsey raised an eyebrow. No. Audrey stepped closer. You were never just my employer. He smiled. And you were never just my chef. She kissed him. Outside, sunlight spilled across the garden. Inside, the mansion no longer felt empty. It wasn't the money that had changed the house. It wasn't the expensive furniture. It wasn't the enormous rooms. It was the sound of two people laughing in the kitchen. The place Ramsey once called a house had finally become a home. And Audrey? She had entered his life to feed a man who had forgotten how to enjoy his own life. And somewhere along the way, she gave him something no fortune could buy. A reason to come home. Because sometimes, the person who changes your life isn't the one who arrives with everything. It's the one who quietly stays long enough to make an empty house feel like home. If this story made you smile, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next emotional billionaire romance story. And before you leave, tell us in the comments, did Audrey do the right thing in accepting to be with Ramsey even after his marriage ended? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Until the next time, this is StoryVerse TV.